The stars looked the same everywhere in space, but Commander Min knew they were far from home. His ship, the Horizon's Promise, had been traveling for 3 months beyond the edge of what humans called known space. Earth had sent them to explore, to find new worlds, maybe to find new friends among the stars. Min stood on the bridge and watched the screens. His crew of 45 people worked quietly at their stations. "Commander, I'm picking up something," said Lieutenant Wu from her station. She was young, only 26, but she was the best sensor officer Earth had. "It's a ship, not human design." Min felt his heart beat faster. First contact. Every explorer dreamed of this moment. "Can you tell what kind of ship?" "It's big, maybe 3 times our size. The design is strange. Lots of sharp edges and what looks like armor plating." Wu's fingers moved across her controls. "They're scanning us too." "Open a channel. All frequencies," Min ordered. He straightened his uniform and took a breath. "This is Commander Min of the human vessel Horizon's Promise. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly contact." The screen flickered. An alien face appeared. Min tried not to react. The creature looked like an insect, with multiple eyes that glowed red and mandibles that clicked when it spoke. The translation software took a moment to work. "You have entered space without permission. This is a violation. I am commander of the Empire. State your purpose." Min chose his words carefully. "We didn't know this space belonged to anyone. We are explorers from a planet called Earth. We're new to space travel. We mean no harm." His mandibles clicked rapidly. The translation called it laughter, but it didn't sound friendly. "New to space? Impossible. All species in the galaxy are registered with the Council. You are either lying or you are primitive. Either way, you must leave or face challenge." Challenge? Min didn't like the sound of that word. "It is the way of the galaxy. When two ships meet and cannot agree, they fight. Small fight. 5 warriors against 5 warriors. Winner decides what happens next. It is civilized. It is fair." Min looked at Wu. She looked worried. He knew what she was thinking. They were explorers, not soldiers, but backing down on first contact would make humanity look weak. "We accept your challenge. Give us coordinates for the fight." Seemed surprised. "You accept? You do not try to run? Interesting. Very well, there is a moon below us. We will meet there in 2 hours. Bring your 5 warriors. The fight ends when one side surrenders or when casualties reach 20%. That is the rule." The screen went dark. Min turned to his crew. "I need 4 volunteers. We're going down to that moon." Every hand on the bridge went up. Min felt proud and sad at the same time. He chose carefully. Lieutenant Wu because she was smart and quick. Corporal De because she was the strongest person on the ship. Private Sung Ho because he never gave up. Private Haewon because she could shoot better than anyone. And himself because he wouldn't ask others to do what he wouldn't do. 2 hours later, they stood on the moon's surface. The air was thin but breathable. Rocky ground stretched in all directions. They were already there, standing in formation. They were bigger than humans, maybe 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and legs built for jumping. They wore armor that looked like it could stop bullets. Stepped forward. "The rules are simple. We fight until one side surrenders or until one warrior from either side is too injured to continue. Then we stop. This is civilized combat. Do you understand?" Min nodded. "We understand." "Begin." They moved fast, faster than Min expected. They jumped high and came down on the humans like falling hammers. De met one head-on and wrestled with it. Sung Ho and Haewon fired their weapons, but the armor was strong. Wu dodged and moved, using rocks for cover. Min fought with. The alien was stronger, but Min was more desperate. He ducked under a blow and hit back. His fist hurt when it connected with the armor. They fought for 10 minutes that felt like hours. Then De screamed. I had broken her leg with a powerful kick. She fell hard. By the rules, the fight should have ended. 20% casualties. 1 out of 5 humans was down. But De didn't surrender. She grabbed her weapon from the ground and kept shooting. Her face was twisted in pain, but she didn't stop. "I'm still fighting," she yelled. The paused. This wasn't right. This wasn't how it worked. Injured warriors surrendered. That was the rule. That was civilized. Sung-Ho saw his chance. He ran at it and jumped on its back. The alien tried to throw him off, but Sung-Ho held on. He found a weak spot in the armor at the neck and pressed his weapon there. The stopped moving, afraid. Wu used the confusion. She had found something on her scanner. The armor had a weak point at the joints. She called out the information. Haewon adjusted her aim and started hitting those spots. The stumbled. One fell. Then another looked around in shock. His perfect formation was breaking. These humans fought wrong. They didn't follow the rules. They didn't calculate odds. They just kept coming. Min tackled. They rolled across the rocky ground. The alien was stronger, but Min was angrier. He thought about De lying there with a broken leg, still fighting. He thought about his crew on the ship, waiting to see if they would come home. He hit again and again until the alien stopped moving. Silence fell on the battlefield. 3 were down. 2 were injured. All 5 humans were still fighting, though De couldn't stand and Sung-Ho was bleeding from a dozen cuts. Stood up slowly. He looked at his warriors, then at the humans. "We surrender." Min could barely believe it. "What? You have won. By all calculations, you should have lost. Your warrior is badly injured but refuses to stop. Your small one used your weak bodies as shields for each other. You fight without logic, without proper calculation. You are," searched for a word, "disturbing." They returned to their ships. They gave them coordinates to something called the Galactic Council's last words were a warning. "I will report what happened here, what you are. The Council will want to study you. Be careful, humans. The galaxy is not ready for warriors who do not know when to stop." Min helped out of the medical bay. She was trying not to cry from the pain. "Did we do good, Commander?" "You did amazing, Corporal. You all did." But as Min sat in his chair later, alone on the bridge, he wondered. Had they done good? Or had they just shown the galaxy something that would make them afraid? They had been shocked by how humans fought. They called it disturbing. They said humans didn't know when to stop. Maybe that was true. Maybe humans were different. Maybe they were dangerous in a way the galaxy didn't understand yet. Min looked at the stars and hoped they had made the right choice. First contact was done. Now humanity would have to live with the consequences. 17 had studied warriors for 300 years. As a scientist of the collective, understanding combat was his specialty. His people had every warrior race in the known galaxy. The strong ones, the fast ones, the ones with natural weapons or armor. He thought he had seen everything. Then the report about humans arrived. The incident had caused concern in the Galactic Council. A new species that fought in strange ways needed to be understood. So they sent 17 to Earth, the human, with a simple mission: figure out what makes humans dangerous. His ship arrived in Earth's orbit on a clear day. The planet was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green land. Cities glowed across the night side. It looked peaceful. 17 found that confusing. Warrior races usually came from harsh worlds with dangerous predators. Earth looked gentle. Ambassador Min met him at the landing platform. She was an older human woman with gray hair and a warm smile. "Welcome to Earth, 17. We're honored to have you here. I hope we can teach you about humanity." "I am here to study your warrior capabilities," 17 said directly. His people didn't believe in wasting time with small talk. "The incident with the was unusual. We need to understand how you fight." Min's smile didn't fade. "Of course. We've arranged for you to visit our military training facilities. You can interview our soldiers, watch them train, run whatever tests you need. We have nothing to hide." Over the next month, 17 studied humans intensely. He measured their physical abilities first. That was always the starting point: strength, speed, reflexes, healing ability. The results disappointed him. Humans were weak compared to most warrior races. A was twice as strong. A was 3 times as fast. Humans had no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no ability to regenerate lost limbs. By every standard measure, 17 recorded in his notes, humans should be average soldiers at best. They are fragile creatures who can be killed easily, yet the feared them. Why? He decided to watch humans train. The military base outside the city of Seoul housed 5,000 soldiers. 17 stood in an observation room and watched them practice combat scenarios. A training exercise began. 20 human soldiers against 20 in a simulated battle. They used weapons that marked hits with paint instead of killing. 17 expected to see standard tactics, formations, calculated movements, retreat when the situation turned bad. That's not what happened. The humans moved like water, constantly adapting. When one group's position was overrun, they didn't surrender. They fell back and regrouped. When a soldier was hit and marked as injured, his teammates immediately moved to protect him. They dragged wounded soldiers to safety even when it meant exposing themselves to enemy fire. One soldier, a young man named Dongwoo, took 5 hits that would have been fatal in real combat. By the rules, he should have stopped fighting. Instead, he crawled forward on his stomach and threw a training grenade that eliminated 3 enemy soldiers. Only when his sergeant ordered him to stop did he finally quit. After the exercise, 17 interviewed Dongwoo. Why did you continue fighting after you were eliminated? You were dead by the simulation rules. Dongwoo looked confused. My squad still needed help. I could still throw the grenade. Why would I stop? Because you were dead. Fighting when you are dead is illogical. But I wasn't really dead. It was training. And even if it was real, I'd want to help my squad with my last breath. They're my brothers and sisters. 17 made a note. Brothers and sisters, you are related to them. No, not by blood, but we've trained together for 2 years. We eat together, sleep in the same barracks, face danger together. That makes us family. I would die for them. They would die for me. This was new. 17 knew about pack bonding in primitive species. Wolves did it. Some herd animals did it. But intelligent species usually outgrew such instincts. The fought for their empire, the fought for glory, but humans fought for each other. It was both primitive and powerful. He requested to interview the soldiers from the first contact incident. Corporal De came to see him in a wheelchair. Her leg was healing but still broken. She would walk again in a few months, the doctors said. Why did you continue fighting when your leg was broken? 17 asked. The pain must have been extreme. De looked at her hands. It hurt worse than anything I've ever felt. I wanted to scream and give up, but I looked at my teammates and I knew they needed me. Commander Min, Woo, Sung-ho, Haewon. They were my responsibility. We came down to that moon together and we were going to leave together. Pain doesn't matter when your family needs you. What if you had died? Would dying for them have been worth it? Yes, De didn't hesitate. Without question, they would do the same for me. 17 ran combat simulations with human soldiers and compared them to other species. The results were clear. In individual combat, humans lost to stronger species 60% of the time. But in unit combat, humans won 75% of the time. They fought better as groups. They protected each other. They adapted quickly when plans failed. And most importantly, they never gave up. He discovered something else strange. Humans had a chemical in their bodies called adrenaline. When they were in danger, this chemical flooded their system. It made them stronger, faster, able to ignore pain. Other species had similar chemicals, but human adrenaline was powerful. It could make them do impossible things. Lift heavy objects to save trapped friends. Keep fighting with terrible injuries. Move faster than their bodies should allow. Private Sung-ho explained it during an interview. When De went down, I didn't think, I just acted. My body moved on its own. I was angry and scared and desperate. I knew we had to win, so I fought harder than I knew I could. Does that make sense? It didn't make sense to 17. Fighting harder than you could was a logical impossibility, but he had seen the recordings. Sung Ho had moved with speed that didn't match his physical testing. The adrenaline had pushed him beyond normal limits. On his final day, 17 met with Ambassador Minigan. "I need to ask you something. Your people, they are not the strongest or fastest, but they are devoted to each other in ways I have never seen. Where does this come from?" Min thought for a moment. Humans evolved as tribal creatures. For thousands of years, we survived by working together. Alone, we were weak. Early humans couldn't outrun predators. We couldn't fight them with claws or teeth. So we used our minds. We worked as groups. We protected each other. The humans who cared deeply for their tribe survived. The ones who only cared for themselves died out. That instinct is still in us. We call it loyalty or love or duty. But really, it's just the knowledge that we're stronger together. But you are an advanced civilization now. You have technology. You don't need such primitive instincts. Maybe not for daily life, but in combat, those instincts make us who we are. A human soldier doesn't fight for abstract concepts. He fights for the person next to him, for his squad, his unit, his friends. That makes us dangerous because we have something worth dying for. 17 returned to the Galactic Council with his report. He stood before the assembled representatives of 500 species and gave his findings. Humans are physically unremarkable. They are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most durable, but they possess qualities that make them extremely dangerous in combat. The council members looked interested. 17 continued. First, they have an unusual pain tolerance driven by adrenaline response. They can fight through injuries that would incapacitate other species. Second, they bond intensely with their combat units. This bond makes them fight harder to protect each other. Third, they adapt rapidly to changing situations. They do not rely on rigid tactics. Fourth, and most concerning, they do not accept defeat while they are still alive. Other species surrender when logic dictates they cannot win. Humans fight until they are physically unable to continue. "Are you saying they are the most dangerous warrior race we've encountered?" asked the Council Prime. "No, I am saying they are the most dangerous warrior race we could encounter. Right now, they are one species with a small population and limited technology. But if they ever face a true threat, if they ever fight a war for survival instead of a ritual challenge, the entire galaxy should be afraid. They will not stop. They will not surrender. They will fight with everything they have until they win or until they are extinct." "Surely you're exaggerating," said a representative from the Harmony Collective. "All species value survival." "Yes, but humans value the survival of their group more than their own survival. That is the difference. They will sacrifice themselves without hesitation if it protects those they care about. I saw it repeatedly. It is not rare or unusual for them. It is normal." 17 looked at the faces staring at him. "My recommendation is clear. Humanity must be approached with diplomacy, not force. Any conflict with them must be avoided, not because they are unbeatable, but because the cost of beating them would be catastrophic. They would make us pay for every victory until we decided it wasn't worth the price." The council discussed his report for hours. Finally, they decided to file it away. Humanity was just one species among hundreds. They had no empire, no fleet, no ambitions for conquest. Surely there was no need for concern. 17 hoped they were right. But deep in his 300 years of experience, he knew they were making a mistake. He had seen the look in Des' eyes when she talked about her squad. He had heard the absolute certainty in Sung Ho's voice. He had watched Dongwu crawl forward when he should have given up. Someday, something would threaten humanity or their friends, and when that day came, the galaxy would learn what 17 already knew. Humans were the most dangerous warriors not because of what they could do, but because of what they would do. They would fight with love and loyalty and desperate fury. They would never stop. They would never surrender. And they would make their enemies wish they had never started the fight. The warning came from the edge of the galaxy on a quiet morning. A colony world called Theta 9 sent a desperate message before going silent. Unknown ships, thousands of them. They're not council. They're not answering. They're just attacking. Please, someone help us. Then nothing. The Galactic Council sent 3 ships to investigate. None returned. They sent 10 more ships. Those didn't return either. Fear spread through the council chambers like ice water. Something was out there. Something that didn't care about peace or rules or the 10,000 years of civilization they had built. The Empire had arrived. They came from dark space, from regions no council ship had ever explored. Their fleet numbered in the thousands. Their ships were massive, built for war, covered in weapons and armor. They themselves were terrifying. 9 feet tall, with thick gray skin like stone and 4 arms that could crush steel. They had been preparing for this moment for centuries, building their strength in secret, waiting for the right time to strike. Within 3 weeks, they captured 5 council worlds. The council military tried to stop them and failed completely. Council forces were designed for peacekeeping and ritual combat. They fought total war. They didn't accept surrender. They didn't follow rules. They simply destroyed everything in their path. On the 4th week, the fleet arrived at Prime, the of 17's people. The council sent their best fleet to defend it. 200 warships with the finest technology the galaxy could build. The battle lasted 6 hours. The council lost 180 ships. They lost 15. Prime surrendered. They accepted but demanded tribute and submission. The proud collective who had stood for 5,000 years knelt to a conqueror. The council met in emergency session on their capital world. Panic filled the chamber. Species after species spoke of surrender. Better to submit now than be destroyed completely. They seemed unstoppable. Ambassador Min of Earth stood to speak. She was older now, nearly 70, but her voice was still strong. The council welcomed humanity 6 years ago. You said we were part of your community. You said we were friends. Let us help you. The council prime looked at her sadly. Ambassador, we appreciate your offer, but humanity has only 15 warships. They have thousands. What could you possibly do? We can fight. We can show them that someone will resist. Maybe that will give others courage. A representative from the Harmony Collective shook his head. You would sacrifice your small fleet for nothing. That is foolish. Better to preserve your forces and survive. Captain Wu, commander of Earth's military forces in Council space, stepped forward. He was young for a captain, only 35, but he had studied every battle in human history. My people don't surrender without fighting. Give us a chance. Let us stand with you. The council argued for hours. Finally, they agreed. The human fleet could join the defense at the Kelvin line, a strategic point that had to pass to reach the core worlds. It was expected to be a slaughter. The council was assembling 500 ships. They were coming with 2,000. Wu gathered his 12 captains before the battle. His own ship, the Indomitable, would lead the human formation. Also in the fleet were the Valiant under Captain Min, now promoted after the first contact years ago, and the Defiant under Commander Wu, who had become one of Earth's finest tactical officers. They expect us to fail, Wu said. The council thinks we're too small to matter. They probably don't even know we exist. But we're going to teach them both a lesson. We're going to show them what humans do when someone threatens our friends. Sir, the odds are bad, said Captain Min. We're outnumbered 4-1. The council fleet will likely retreat when casualties get high. We could be left alone out there. I know, that's why I'm giving everyone a choice. Any ship that wants to pull back, I'll understand. No judgment, this isn't our war. 12 captains looked at him. None moved. None spoke of retreat. Wu smiled. Sir, with respect, this became our war the moment they attacked our friends. We're staying. The Battle of the Kelvin Line began at dawn on a Tuesday. The fleet arrived in perfect formation, confident and strong. The council fleet waited nervously, their ships spread in a defensive line. The human ships were there too, 12 small vessels at the edge of the formation. They probably didn't even notice them. The battle started normally. The advanced. The Council fleet fired at long range. Shields lit up. A few ships on each side took damage. Then the accelerated, charging straight at the Council line. That's when the Council formation started to break. Ships began retreating according to protocol. When casualties reached 15%, proper military doctrine called for withdrawal to regroup. The humans didn't retreat. Wu watched the Council fleet pulling back and made his decision. All human vessels, this is indomitable. Delta Protocol, we're going in. Delta Protocol was something humans had developed quietly. It meant one thing: suicide attack. Make the enemy pay so heavily they would fear to fight humans again. It was desperate and brutal and completely against Council military doctrine. The Indomitable accelerated to full speed and drove straight into the formation. The other human ships followed. They were so small compared to warships, like mice attacking lions, but these mice had teeth. The Indomitable rammed through a cruiser's shield and fired every weapon at point-blank range. The cruiser exploded. The Indomitable was damaged but kept moving. It headed for the next ship. "This is valiant," called Captain Min. "We're taking heavy fire. Hull breaches on 3 decks. We're not stopping." "This is defiant," said Wu calmly, though alarms blared in the background. "Shields are gone. Half our weapons are offline. We're still fighting." They had never seen anything like this. Ships didn't charge into certain death. Ships surrendered when they were damaged. These human vessels kept coming, kept firing, even as they broke apart. It was insane. It was terrifying. The Valiant was surrounded by 5 destroyers. Min knew his ship was finished. His crew had fought for 30 minutes beyond when they should have retreated. Engineering was on fire. The bridge was filled with smoke. Half his crew was dead or injured. "Crew, this is Captain Min. Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That's an order." He waited until the last pod launched. Then he turned his dying ship toward the nearest carrier, pushed the engines to maximum, and rammed directly into it. The Valiant's reactor detonated on impact. The explosion destroyed the carrier and 2 nearby destroyers. 3 ships for 1 human ship. Min's last thought was that it was a good trade. Wu saw the Valiant die. She felt tears on her face but didn't stop working. Her ship was barely holding together, but 70 people were still alive on it. 70 people who trusted her to lead them. She found 3 cruisers in close formation and drove the Defiant between them. Her weapons fired in all directions. The cruisers tried to shoot back but hit each other instead. 1 cruiser exploded. Then another. The Defiant was breaking apart, but it was still fighting. "Captain, we need to evacuate," her executive officer shouted. "Not yet. We can get 1 more, just 1 more." The Defiant fired its last missile. It hit a command ship and tore through its bridge. The command ship lost control and crashed into another vessel. Both exploded. Then the Defiant finally broke into pieces. Wu's last order was abandon ship. She stayed at her controls until she was sure everyone else was in the pods. Then the bridge collapsed around her. The battle lasted 4 hours. All 12 human ships were destroyed. 600 humans died, but they took 40 vessels with them. More importantly, they bought time. The Council fleet regrouped. Reinforcements arrived. The advance stopped at the Kelvin line. Wu died on the Indomitable. The ship took so much damage that it couldn't be evacuated. He spent his last minutes broadcasting to the Council fleet. "This is Captain Wu. To all Council forces, don't let our sacrifice be wasted. They can be beaten. They can be hurt. Make them pay for every system they take. Make them regret they ever started this war. Make them fear you the way they should fear us." The transmission ended when the Indomitable exploded. But millions across the galaxy heard his words. They saw what 12 small human ships had done. They saw courage and sacrifice and a refusal to surrender. In the council chambers, Ambassador Min stood before the assembled species with tears streaming down her face. "You asked what we could do. We showed you. We can fight. We can die for what we believe in. Now I'm asking you, will you do the same? Will you stand with us against these invaders? Or will you surrender and spend the rest of your existence wondering if you could have saved your freedom? The chamber was silent. Then slowly representatives began to stand. First the who remembered their first meeting with humans, then the thinking of 17's warning, then more and more species. By the end, the entire council was standing. The Council Prime spoke with new determination. They wanted a quick conquest. They expected us to fold without a real fight. The humans taught us something today. They taught us that some things are worth dying for. We will fight. We will not surrender. And we will make the regret they ever attacked us. The war had truly begun. They had expected an easy victory. They had not expected to face humans. They had not expected that 12 small ships could change the entire galaxy's will to fight. They had killed 600 humans at the Kelvin line. It was a mistake that would cost them everything, because now Earth was mobilizing for total war. Now humanity knew that the galaxy needed them. Now every human soldier, sailor, and pilot understood what they were fighting for. They were about to learn what 17 had tried to warn the Council about years ago. Humans were the most dangerous warriors not because they were strong, but because they absolutely refused to give up. And when you hurt their friends, they would fight until they won or until they were extinct. There was no middle ground. There was no surrender. The real war was about to begin. Earth changed overnight. Every factory stopped making civilian goods and started making weapons. Every shipyard began building warships. Schools became training centers. Scientists worked day and night on better shields, stronger weapons, faster engines. The planet transformed from a peaceful world into a war machine. Admiral Sung took command of Earth's growing fleet. He was 50 years old with gray hair and cold eyes. He had studied war his entire life, but he had never commanded forces in real combat. Now he led millions. His first order was simple: we will not fight fair, we will fight to win. The Council was shocked by how fast humanity mobilized. Within 6 months, Earth produced 100 new warships. Within a year, 500. The human ships were smaller than vessels, but they were fast and dangerous. More importantly, they were crewed by soldiers who would rather die than surrender. The war spread across dozens of star systems. They pushed forward, but now they met real resistance. Council forces, inspired by the human sacrifice at the Kelvin line, fought harder. But it was humanity's tactics that truly changed the war. Admiral Sung didn't believe in fair fights. When they attacked a Council world, he didn't meet them in open battle. Instead, he waited until they landed their troops and then destroyed their supply ships. When fleets pursued human vessels, he led them into asteroid fields and ambushed them. When the Held captured worlds, human special forces conducted raids that made occupation expensive and deadly. They are stronger than us ship to ship, Sung explained to his officers. So we don't fight them that way. We make every battle cost them more than it's worth. We make them bleed for every system. Eventually, they'll decide conquest isn't worth the price. But they had already conquered 10 worlds. One of them was New Pyongyang, a human colony established just 5 years earlier. 2 million humans lived there when they arrived. The Planetary Defense Force fought as hard as they could, but they were overwhelmed in 3 days. They expected the colony to surrender peacefully after the military was defeated. Instead, they faced something they had never encountered: total civilian resistance. Every human on that world became a fighter. Bora had been a teacher before the war. She taught history to children in the capital city. When they landed, she organized her neighbors into a resistance cell. They started small, sabotaging equipment, spreading information, helping people hide from patrols. Then they became more aggressive. Bora's group learned where they stored their ammunition. They blew it up. They learned patrol routes. They set traps. They learned which officers were in charge. They assassinated them. The occupation force of 50,000 faced constant attacks from an enemy they couldn't see or predict. They responded with brutality. They executed civilians suspected of resistance. They destroyed entire neighborhoods, but it only made the humans angrier. More people joined the resistance. Children who survived raids grew up swearing revenge. Farmers who lost their families became saboteurs. The colony became a nightmare for the occupiers. Bora survived for 18 months of guerrilla warfare. She became legendary among the resistance, a ghost who struck and vanished. They put a huge bounty on her head. They never collected it. She died defending a hospital full of wounded civilians. She killed 15 soldiers before they finally brought her down. Her last words were radioed to every resistance cell on the planet. Make them pay for every day they stay here. Make them wish they never came. They held New Pyongyang for 2 years. It cost them 30,000 soldiers. They never fully controlled it. When Admiral Sung finally liberated the colony, he found a world in ruins but a population unbroken. The survivors had lost everything but their will to fight. Meanwhile, the Council was learning from humanity. The who once fought with rigid formations and calculated tactics now trained with human instructors. Sergeant Duh, recovered from her broken leg, taught them small unit tactics. She showed them how to use terrain, how to adapt when plans failed, how to keep fighting when logic said they should retreat. Commander of the, who had fought humans at first contact, watched his soldiers train with Duh. "Your methods are still disturbing," he told her. "You teach my soldiers to disobey orders if the situation demands it. You teach them to sacrifice themselves for their units. These things go against everything we believed about proper warfare." De smiled sadly. "War isn't proper, Commander. It's horrible. But if you're going to fight, you need to fight to win. Your old ways might have worked for ritual combat, but they don't do rituals. They do slaughter. So we have to match them in brutality and beat them in determination." The wise scientists who had studied war for centuries found themselves learning from a species they had as physically weak. 17 worked directly with human strategists, analyzing battles and developing new tactics. He was amazed at how humans thought. "You see patterns where we see chaos," he told Admiral Sung after reviewing a battle. "When we calculate odds and probabilities, you calculate emotions and psychology. You understand that war isn't just about numbers. It's about will." Even the Peaceful Harmony Collective learned to fight. They had spent 10,000 years avoiding violence, but when they attacked their worlds, they had to choose between learning to fight or ceasing to exist. Human volunteers taught them how to defend themselves. It was awkward at first, watching people who believed in peace learning to kill, but they learned because the alternative was extinction. The war became a grinding nightmare. Humanity lost ships, soldiers, and colonies. Earth's population dropped as millions volunteered for the military. Every family lost someone. Every city had memorials for the dead. The cost was staggering, but humans kept fighting. 3 years into the war, Captain Wu's sacrifice at the Kelvin Line was still remembered. His brother, Lieutenant Ho, commanded a destroyer in the front lines. He had been 17 when the war started. Now he was 20, hardened by constant combat, carrying the weight of his brother's legacy. During the Battle of Theta Cluster, Ho's ship was cut off from the main fleet. 5 cruisers surrounded him. His crew of 80 people looked to him for orders. The logical choice was surrender. The brave choice was to fight and die. Ho chose something different. "We're not surrendering and we're not dying," he told his crew. "We're going to cripple as many of these ships as we can, then we're going to run like hell and survive to fight another day. My brother died heroically. I plan to live heroically. Are you with me?" His crew roared approval. They fought for 20 minutes, damaging 2 cruisers badly enough that they had to pull back for repairs. Then they escaped through an asteroid field at speeds that should have torn their ship apart. They survived. They kept fighting. Stories like that kept humanity going. Not just stories of sacrifice, but stories of survival. stories of impossible victories, stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. A pilot named Jin who landed her damaged fighter to save a downed comrade. An engineer named one who kept his ship's engines running through 3 battles with repairs that shouldn't have worked. A medic named Yi Jin who treated wounded soldiers under fire for 6 straight hours. But the cost kept growing. Sung Ho, the private who had fought at first contact, was now a captain. He led a boarding action against a supply depot. His team of 20 soldiers captured the depot and destroyed supplies meant for 10,000 troops. It was a major victory, but Sung Ho was killed in the final minutes of fighting. He died the way he had lived, protecting his soldiers with his own body. Admiral Sung attended too many funerals. He pinned too many medals on the families of dead soldiers. He wrote too many letters to parents, spouses, and children. The weight of command crushed him some days, but he couldn't stop, couldn't rest. Too many people depended on him. 4 years into the war, the controlled 15 worlds, but they had stopped advancing. The Council forces, hardened by human training and inspired by human courage, held the line. They were learning that conquest was expensive when your enemy refused to accept defeat. A general named was captured after his ship was destroyed in battle. Human intelligence officers interrogated him. Ambassador Min was there to observe. She was 74 now, her hair completely white, her face lined with the stress of war. But her eyes were still sharp. "Why won't you surrender?" asked her, genuinely confused. "We are stronger, we have more ships. Eventually we will win." "Eventually is a long time," Min replied. "How many soldiers have you lost? How many ships? How much has this war cost your empire? And what have you gained? Worlds you can't fully control because the populations resist. Systems you have to garrison with troops that could be elsewhere. We're making this war so expensive that victory costs more than it's worth." "That is madness. Warfare should be decisive." "Maybe, but humans learned long ago that you don't have to be strong to win. You just have to make the strong enemy regret fighting you. We call it a Pyrrhic victory when winning costs so much that you might as well have lost. That's what we're giving you. Every world you take, every battle you win, it bleeds you. How long before your empire decides to stop bleeding?" Had no answer. He saw the truth in her words. The empire was winning battles but losing the war. Their population was tired. Their economy strained. Their fleet was half the size it had been at the start. And the humans just kept coming, kept fighting, kept making every victory cost more than the last. The galaxy watched in amazement. Humanity, the youngest species in the Council, the physically weakest warriors, had changed everything. They had taught the ancient races how to fight with desperation and determination. They had shown that will could overcome strength. They had proven that some things were worth dying for, and that made them worth living for too. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the casualty reports. 5 million humans dead, dozens of colonies damaged or destroyed, a generation sacrificed to war, but the advance had stopped. The tide was turning. "Sir, intelligence reports they are concentrating their remaining fleet," his tactical officer reported. "They're preparing for one massive push toward their home system." Sung nodded. The final battle was coming. The war would be decided soon. He thought about all the people who had died to reach this moment. Wu, Min Sung Ho, Wu, Bora, millions more whose names he would never know. They had given everything so that humanity and its friends could survive. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We're ending this war." The final battle would happen at the home system. Intelligence reports showed the enemy gathering their remaining fleet there, pulling ships from occupied worlds, abandoning positions they had held for years. They were desperate. 4 years of war had broken their empire. Now they would make one last stand at there or accept defeat. Admiral Sung commanded the largest fleet ever assembled, 2,000 Council warships from a dozen different species. At the center were 500 human vessels, the survivors of countless battles, crewed by soldiers who had seen too much death. The fleet gathered at the edge of space and prepared to jump. On Earth, billions of people watched the news. The war had touched every family. There was hardly anyone who hadn't lost someone. Parents who buried children. Children who grew up without parents. Spouses who faced empty houses. The cost of being warriors had been paid in blood and tears and broken hearts. Ambassador Min, now 76, gave one final speech before the fleet jumped. She stood in the council chambers, her voice still strong despite her age. Today we end this war, not with hatred but with determination, not with cruelty but with justice. The started this fight. We will finish it, but we will remember why we fought. We fought to protect those we love. We fought for freedom. We fought because some things are worth defending. Don't let anger make you forget that. The fleet jumped into space. The enemy was waiting. 3,000 warships, the last defenders of there, formed a defensive sphere around their planet. It would be the biggest space battle in galactic history. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vigil. Around him, his officers worked quietly, efficiently. They had done this so many times before, but this was different. This was the end. All ships, this is Admiral Sung. Today we finish what they started 4 years ago. Fight smart, fight hard, and come home alive. That's an order. The battle began. 2 massive fleets collided in the darkness of space. Weapons fire lit up the void like deadly fireworks. Ships exploded. Shields failed. Soldiers died. It was chaos and fury and desperate combat. They fought with the strength of those defending their home. They knew this was their last chance. If they lost here, their empire was finished. So they fought with everything they had. They were fierce and powerful and determined. But the Council fleet had learned from humans. They didn't fight with rigid formations anymore. They adapted. They improvised. They protected each other. They used small unit tactics that they had taught them. They employed strategic flexibility they had learned from human commanders. Even the Harmony Collective, fighting for the first time in their history, stood their ground with courage born from human example. The human ships were in the thick of fighting. Pilot Haewon, now a squadron commander, led her fighters in a desperate attack on a battleship. Her brother had died at New Pyongyang. Her parents had died when the bombed Seoul. She had lost almost everyone she loved to this war. Her squadron followed her into a storm of enemy fire and somehow survived. They destroyed the battleship. Lieutenant Ho, following his brother's legacy, commanded a cruiser on the front line. His ship took heavy damage but kept fighting. When his weapons systems failed, he used his ship as a battering ram, smashing into a destroyer at full speed. Both ships were destroyed. Ho and his crew evacuated just in time. They were picked up by a ship whose captain had trained with Ho's brother years ago. The circle of sacrifice and survival continued. The battle raged for 12 hours. Ships fell on both sides. Space was filled with debris and bodies and the wreckage of war. They began to falter. Their defensive sphere collapsed. Their ships started pulling back toward their planet. Then something unexpected happened. The Emperor himself appeared on all communication channels. He was old, ancient even, with scars covering his gray skin. He looked tired, defeated. "Enough. I offer surrender. We will withdraw to our original borders. We will pay reparations. We will never attack Council space again. Just stop, please, just stop." The Council fleet held fire. Admiral Sung received the surrender offer and knew what he should do. Accept it. End the war. Save lives. But he looked around his bridge and saw faces hardened by years of combat. He thought of the 5 million humans who had died. He thought of New Pyongyang and the resistance fighters who never gave up. He thought of all the pain and suffering and loss. His communication officer looked at him. "Sir, what do we do?" Before Sung could answer, a transmission came from one of the fighter squadrons. It was Haewon. Her voice was cold and angry. "They started this war. They killed billions. They burned our colonies. They don't get to surrender now and walk away. We should finish them. We should make them pay for everything." Sung understood her anger. He felt it too. Every commander in the fleet felt it. They had caused so much pain. It would be easy to finish them, to destroy their fleet, to bomb their world, to make them suffer the way they had made others suffer. It would be justice. It would be revenge. But would it be right? Sung closed his eyes and thought about the first time he had put on a uniform. He had been 18 years old, full of idealism and hope. He had believed that soldiers protected people. That war, when it had to be fought, was fought for good reasons. 4 years of combat had almost killed that idealism, but not quite, not completely. He opened his eyes and looked at his crew, young people who had spent their youth fighting, old people who should have been retired but stayed to lead. They all looked exhausted, haunted, ready for it to be over. This is Admiral Sung to all Council forces. Hold your fire. I am accepting the surrender. Silence filled the fleet communication channels. Then Haewon's voice came back, disbelieving. Sir, they killed my family. They killed billions. We can end them right now. I know, Commander. I know what they did. I lost people too. We all did. But we didn't fight this war to become like them. We fought to protect life, to defend freedom. If we destroy the now after they surrendered, what does that make us? What did all those people die for? Another voice joined the conversation. It was Commander of the Admiral is right. We fought because we had to, not because we wanted to. They are defeated. They are no longer a threat. Destroying them serves no purpose except revenge. More voices joined in. Captains from a dozen species agreeing with Sung. Not everyone agreed. Some wanted blood, some wanted revenge, but most were just tired, tired of fighting, tired of dying, tired of war. Sung transmitted directly to the Emperor. We accept your surrender. You will withdraw to your original borders immediately. You will pay reparations to every world you damaged. You will dismantle most of your military fleet. You will allow Council observers to ensure you keep these terms. If you break this agreement, we will finish what we started today. Do you accept these terms? The Emperor bowed his head. We accept. I am sorry. I thought we were strong enough to conquer. I was wrong. Your species, the humans, you showed me that strength is not enough. You must also have will, and you must know when to stop. We did not know when to stop. You do. That is why you won. The battle ended. The fleet began recovery operations, picking up survivors, treating wounded, counting the dead. The final casualty count was staggering. The Council lost 400 ships, the lost over 2,000. Millions of soldiers from all sides died in that 12-hour battle. It was the bloodiest day in galactic history. But the war was over. Sung sat alone in his cabin that night. He thought about all the decisions he had made, all the people who had died following his orders, all the victories and defeats and compromises. He wondered if he had done the right thing by accepting the surrender. Some people would call him soft. Some would say he should have finished the. Maybe they were right, but he had made his choice. He had chosen mercy over revenge. He hoped it was right. He hoped all those who died would understand. The fleet returned to Council space as heroes. There were parades and celebrations and medals. The galaxy rejoiced that the war was over, but for the soldiers who fought it, the celebration felt empty. They had survived, but too many friends hadn't. They had won, but the cost was almost too much to bear. General Duh, who had taught so many aliens how to fight like humans, visited a memorial wall on Earth. It contained the names of every human who had died in the war. 5 million names carved into black stone. She walked slowly along the wall, touching names she recognized. Sung Ho, Min Woo, so many others. People she had trained with, fought with, cared about. Commander found her there. The warrior stood beside her in silence for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Was it worth it, becoming warriors, sacrificing so much? De looked at the wall. 5 million names. 5 million people who would never go home. 5 million families broken. That's not the right question. We didn't choose to become warriors because we wanted to. We became warriors because we had to. They gave us no choice. They threatened our friends. They threatened our homes, so we fought. We won, but the cost. She touched the wall again. The cost will haunt us forever. My people learned much from yours, said. You taught us that there are things worth dying for, but you also taught us that there are things worth living for. That is a difficult balance. It is. The hardest part about being a warrior isn't fighting, it's remembering why you fight. It's keeping your humanity when war tries to make you into a monster. It's knowing when to stop. De looked at. We proved we're the most lethal warrior race in the galaxy. We made the regret they ever fought us, but now comes the hard part. We have to prove we can be more than warriors. We have to prove we can be wise, can be merciful, can be the people we were before the war forced us to change. On Earth, children were being born who would grow up never knowing war. The factories were converting back to civilian production. The shipyards were building exploration vessels instead of warships. Slowly, carefully, humanity was remembering how to live in peace. But the scars remained. Every veteran carried memories of battles. Every family had an empty chair at dinner. Every city had monuments to the dead. Ambassador Min, in her final year of life, gave one last speech to the Galactic Council. Humanity has proven we can be warriors. We stood with you against extinction. We fought harder and longer than anyone expected. We made sacrifices that will echo through history. But I want you to remember something. We didn't fight because we loved war. We fought because we loved peace. We fought because we loved our friends. We fought to protect the galaxy we wanted to live in. Now that the war is over, help us remember how to be more than soldiers. Help us heal. Help us grow. Because the most dangerous thing about humanity isn't our ability to fight. It's our potential to forget why we fought. The galaxy took her words to heart. Humanity became the Council's defenders, the warriors who would stand against any threat. But they were also teachers, diplomats, explorers. They showed the galaxy that the same determination that made them lethal in war made them powerful in peace. The same bonds that made them fight for each other made them build communities. The same refusal to surrender made them solve problems others considered impossible. Years later, a young cadet named Jin stood before the memorial wall on her graduation day. She had never seen the war. It had ended before she was born, but she knew the names. She studied their stories. She understood the sacrifice. Her instructor, an old veteran with gray hair and sad eyes, stood beside her. Why did they fight so hard? Jin asked. Why didn't they just surrender when it got too difficult? The instructor, who had been there at the Kelvin line decades ago, smiled sadly. Because they loved each other more than they feared death. Because they understood that some things are worth protecting, even at terrible cost. They fought so that you could stand here today, free and safe, asking that question. Will we ever have to fight like that again? I hope not, but if we do, I believe your generation will do what theirs did. You'll stand up, you'll fight. You'll protect those you love. That's what makes humans who we are, not our strength or speed or technology, our love, our loyalty, our absolute refusal to let evil win. That's why we're the most lethal warrior race. Not because we're the best at killing, because we're the best at surviving, at enduring, at never giving up. Jin looked at the 5 million names and made a quiet promise. She would remember. She would honor their sacrifice. And if the time came when the galaxy needed warriors again, she would stand ready. Not because she wanted to fight, but because she understood what her predecessors understood. Some things are worth defending. Some people are worth dying for. And humanity, for all its flaws, would never stop protecting those it loved. That was the true cost of being the most lethal warrior race. Not the battles won or enemies defeated, but the burden of knowing that when peace was threatened, when friends needed help, when evil rose to challenge good, humans would answer the call. They would fight. They would bleed. They would sacrifice. They would do whatever was necessary to protect the galaxy they called home. And they would never, ever surrender.